Granblue Fantasy developers have just released their most ambitious work yet. If it stays as successful as it is in a year, then it will be a statement for the gaming industry. Now, half of you might be wondering why it isn't a certain roguelike orange suit looting game. The other half might be wondering why it isn't a certain Pokemon with guns. Honestly, I thought I'd be covering the second one instead. Yes, they are important as well, but I will explain the issue with this in a bit. So an anime Monster Hunter just dropped. What's the big deal? To understand this, we must first learn the context. Granblue Fantasy is a franchise that started as a mobile game. It's not your typical mobile gacha either. It's hard and it's very grindy. You can understand how many people are actually willing to slave away in a game like that. Nonetheless, they found quite a bit of success there. In today's game industry standards, the correct move would have been to create a similar game and keep updating the first one. But these base devs said, no. We're taking risks, and we're going all in. And then they created a fighting game. Sadly, it didn't garner that much attention here in the West, and as you can see, it wasn't exactly a roaring success. But these devs did not give up their vision of expanding on the franchise and created this genius of a game. Don't get me wrong, this game is nowhere perfect. It has some bugs that can ruin its gameplay, the story is mid, and sometimes even gets stuck in the loading screen. But hey, that's just... Oh wait. That's not mine. But hey, after you get past all that, there's a beautiful game with gameplay beyond the surface. What do I mean by this? On the surface, it looks like characters with different builds that do hack and slash and have different weapons. When you actually play the game, it fires up all the neurons inside your head. Don't take the depth of my words here because you really have to experience it yourself to understand. But basically, every character is playing the game while also playing two different games at the same time. The first is simple dodge and attack flowchart. In that attack section, there lies the second, which is a minigun you have to do well. Because if you don't, then your damage will drop drastically. Then lastly, there's also the team play game, which you should also do well, because that's also part of maximizing the damage. This part is where you get nasty looks if you mess up. There's also the sigil system, which is basically your equipment, and depending on your setup, this could also change up the gameplay. Then it adds another layer to the games. All in all, that adds a lot of layers to the complexity of the basic RPG formula, which I wish will be standardized in the coming future for all gaming. So what does it have to do anything with innovation and gaming as a whole? The addition of layers to a game could make or break it. More elements that overlap means less target audience, as its own niche develops more and more into extremes. And it's no surprise that audience is directly proportional to players and of course, revenue. The devs added as much as they thought would be fun, and it paid off for them. Like literally, just look at this. This is highly risky, especially considering that their previous attempt at innovation was not exactly skyrocketing, but they wanted to share it nonetheless. So what does it have to do with anything with us gamers? Well, the game industry today is afraid of innovation, exactly because it's risky. If you check the chart, the games that innovate have a problem. People don't buy innovation. Check the history. Knockout City has a pretty problematic run, but it was also innovative. Rumbleverse. This is the best game I have never played. I for sure would have played this a lot had I known about it, but it didn't last because it's unique and the target audience is very small. Gigantic! How do you even... Oh wait, it's alive again? Oh, okay. Cool. Omega Strikers. Oh boy, Omega Strikers. I can talk about this game all day and we won't be finished, so I'll keep this short. One of the problems is the visuals. Seeing this game as a non-player, your first focus would be on the small yellow circle that they're fighting over. But you also see HP bars and immediately you think, oh, Rocket League of Legends. In fact, that's exactly what the devs want you to think. They want to make an impression that they take elements from games you know and love, so you're incentivized to give it a try. However, that's not exactly how it plays. It's more like Super Smash Bros? You see, the HP bar being depleted isn't actually what kills you. It's being knocked into a wall. And the only thing that can kill you are abilities that do damage because basic attack only affects the ball. These abilities can also be used to knock the ball in a certain direction. So the main risk versus reward is investing into making goals directly or killing your enemies so scoring a goal is easier. You can also do sick plays with your abilities, and the most basic one is using an ability right after using your basic attack because you know that the enemy will use theirs right after yours. This then gives the game a large amount of complexity and makes it play more like a MOBA fighting game than a MOBA RPG. Okay, so enough of that. Point is, there's so many original concepts that fail because they don't sustain a big enough player base to generate enough revenue to keep it running, which is a shame because these games take a lot of time and effort to make. Now, I'm not saying we should stop supporting the million-dollar companies. It's just as the doctors say, too much of anything is bad. Supporting them is actually good for us too, because if publishers stay up, then games will keep coming for sure. Meanwhile, if we stop supporting them, then the gaming industry as a whole could fall onto itself. You could think of this as a node attributed to order and chaos. Neither is better than the other. They are two sides of the same coin. Order believes that we should strive for long-term and strictly so. In relation to the context, order would mean that we should keep supporting mainstream games. Chaos believes that online change can be flourished and only in change. In our context, this line of thought would mean that we should only ever support games that are different from each other. There's a heavy flaw with both of them. If we only ever supported mainstream, then the publishers and developers would be afraid to give a different experience, and gaming would be as stale as it has been in the last 5 years. But if games never iterated, then the gaming industry would be so chaotic that only extremists will be willing to help it flourish, because it's way too risky, just as it was in the beginning of the industry. In this line of thought, the whole of gaming could collapse on itself, so it's a no-go either. We should have a good balance of both. Pure order is stagnation, but pure chaos is damnation. Right now, I believe we're a bit lacking on the chaos side. I think we all had it in the back of our minds. It's good that games we played growing up are alive and well, but what's new? Where's the next generation of gamers? Where's innovation in the last 5 years? Well, fret not. Granblue Fantasy Relink is one of the many that's rising up to fix this mess. I mean, you'd be living under a rock if you haven't heard of Lethal Company and Palworld. These powerhouses took the gaming world by storm, unsurprisingly so. They tipped the balance where we needed to be. The reason why I have not made either of them the subject of this video is that they don't have the history yet, which is funny because they have made history. But they could still fall into the same trap, and who knows if they decide to make Lethal Company Chapter 7 or Palworld XXIV, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, what should we do? Play and support fun games. That's what it's about. In fact, that's all it's ever been about. Don't be a fanatic, and certainly, don't be a hater. Just play fun games. We're gamers after all. That's all we can do. But at the same time, that's really all we need to do. Play fun games.